meditate, just enjoy a moment of silence to yourself. All right, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're moving to the public comment period for the evening. We have one person signed up so far, Mr. John Brandon Olson. And just a reminder to speak directly into the microphone so you can record you properly. You got 3 minutes to speak, and just say your name and your address, and in 3 minutes we'll begin.
My name's Brandon Olson. I live at 33 Stony Brook Court in Fletcher. Madam Clerk, yes. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I just want to speak briefly on the proposed Conservative Carolina grant. I saw Heather was off the agenda tonight, but we were going to hear a little bit about alternative uses for our excess fund balance. I know many of you are already aware about the 40% to 65% target and where we are now, and that's undesignated, and we also have that $2 million, $2 million plus dollars in our designated fund balance for recreational use. So there's a lot there for these things. And I think it's, I hope we're taking this seriously and considering it. I know it's things, when we've talked about the extension through Fernleaf and out past 25 into Meritor. In the past, it seems like things get a little quiet, and just kind of get a sense of a lack of support. I mean, I've been around the block, seen you all work on projects you're really excited to work on, and been in business meetings or group projects where somebody's asking questions and they really are trying to find a way to yes, and you can kind of tell when somebody's trying to find a way to no. And maybe I'm wrong, but it sometimes feels like it might be that way. So I hope we're trying to find a way to yes here. I was looking at our community survey that we commissioned last year so we could get a sense of what people in the town of Fletcher wanted, and we did. From that survey, 94% of residents indicated they strongly or somewhat supported the proposed development of additional greenway trails that extended from Billmore Community Park to the Meritor property. 94%. 89% also supported the development of additional greenway trails that connected outside the town limits to a larger regional network of trails. That's from the survey. The people of Fletcher have spoken. Their voice was clear and unambiguous, and I hope the council's listening. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We don't have anybody else signed up. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak during the public comment period? Alrighty, seeing none. Would you like to speak? Yes. Sure. And just say your name, your address, and then your 3 minutes will begin. And make sure you speak directly into the mic, please.
Yes. Terry Haas, Haas, 108 Hawks Nest Drive in Fletcher. I just wanted to comment about the structure at the corner of Woodhill and 25 that was abandoned by, I guess, Papa's Pantry was there, and the building's been there, and I guess it's owned by that gas station. I forgot the name of it, begins with a P. But it's just abandoned, and it's graffitied, broken glass, debris all around. It's not being maintained. It's an eyesore to our village, eyesore to our entrance to our neighborhood, and now it's become a trailer, big truck parking lot also, overnight, during, so I'm just curious as to what's happening with that property. And that's all I have to say.
All righty. We thank you for your comments.
I'm sorry, what was your last name again?
Haas, Haas, as in Sandy.
And it was 108 Hawks Nest, is that right? Okay, thank you.
Good. Okay. Anybody else that wishes to speak during public comment? All righty. We will move on to the approval of the minutes. Council, any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes presented? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Make the motion.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to updates from council, if there are any. Hearing no updates, well, I'll mention that kudos to the Parks and Rec Department on the father-daughter dance. It was really well done. So if y'all got a chance to check out the pictures or attend, big thanks to them.
Yep, thanks for mentioning that, Mayor.
Yep.
Yeah, were you out at the, did you make it out? Oh, okay.
I did make it out.
Yeah. Heard it went well.
Did. All righty, moving on to the consent agenda. Any questions, comments, concerns, any items on there? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
We'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving to our first discussion item, we have a presentation on support for reconnection of passenger rail service with Amtrak passing through sections of West North Carolina. We have Mr. Martin Wheeler and Clifford Meek here, and the floor is yours. And thank you for being here this evening.
We'll see where this goes. My name is Clifford Meek. I'm from Hendersonville. Mr. Wheeler here is from Charlotte. He's got an organization that is trying to get passenger service throughout North and South Carolina. He'll know more about the process than I will here tonight. I have just 6 little points. I gave you all a little brochure last month when I was here. And I just want to go over some of the 6 points.
I can't hear in the back.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Hello?
Yeah, just speak directly into the
Yeah, a
microphone.
little bit closer to the mic.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
A little, yeah.
A little
They
bit-
couldn't
loud
hear
you
you in the
can.
back.
A little bit closer. All right, I'm Mr. Meek, I'm from Hendersonville, this is Mr. Wheeler. He's from Charlotte. He has an organization of Carolina Association of Passenger Trains, in which he's trying to be the driving force behind passenger trains in the Carolinas. Last month, I gave you a little brochure of what we're going to talk about here tonight. And some of the points that I want to make again here publicly is for City Council to make a public proclamation supporting Amtrak rail passenger service to Western North Carolina. Send a copy of the said proclamation to the Federal Railroad Administration, asking that this route through Fletcher be considered for future Amtrak rail passenger service and to be listed in the corridor identification and development program. Point 3, send a copy of said publication to the officials of Amtrak showing that you support their efforts. Send a copy of said publication to the Secretary of Transportation, Buttigieg, as this will have to be a federal project because it crosses the state line, North Carolina and South Carolina. And we're going to have to get our U.S. representative involved, and that will be Senator Tom Tillis, our U.S. Senator in Washington. He has done a similar project on the other side of the state using infrastructure monies for North Carolina to run from the state line to the city of Raleigh for our new high-speed rail line, passenger line. South Carolina senator got infrastructure monies for the not South Carolina, Virginia senator got monies for the Virginia half from the state line up to Richmond. We're looking to do something similar here on this line through Fletcher that goes to Spartanburg, South Carolina. And there's a senior advisor on the infrastructure coordinator in the White House, and her name is Natalie Quillian.
Wow, Natalie who?
Quillian, Quillian. She just took over the office. She has the ear of the president, who got the infrastructure money project through Congress. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Wheeler. If there's any questions, I'll take them after Mr. Wheeler.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I am Martin Wheeler. I'm at 5541 Prosperity View Drive, living in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm president of the Carolinas Association for Passenger Trains. That's a 501c3 nonprofit organization working in the Carolinas, and we've been in existence for over 40 years now. To give you a bit of context as to where we are right now, you've probably been hearing about the Asheville to Salisbury route that's been talked about for years and now getting very close to being, moving ahead and maybe becoming a reality here in the next 6 to 7 years. So that's part of the Corridor ID program. The state has already got the grants and everything for that, so that's already in the works. We're not trying to confuse this with that particular project. This is something that's different. About $66 billion worth of money was set aside in the federal infrastructure bill that was approved just 2 or 3 years ago for rail across the country. And as part of that, the Federal Railroad Administration was given the task of looking at extending and restoring long-distance Amtrak routes or routes that were in existence before Amtrak, and maybe restoring some of those routes across the country. So they were embarking on a study and have been doing that now for almost a year or so, and they're heading into the last year of that. So what we were interested in doing was, beyond what we're already going to get, hopefully, between Asheville and Salisbury, we're thinking down the road of the viability of having train service not only from this area to the east, but also back to the west, to Knoxville, up to Cincinnati, the Midwest, and adding that in as part of the long-distance network that Amtrak would be working on over the next 25 to 50 years or whatever. So the FRA is putting all those maps, those routes on a map. And what we are trying to do is to get support for including just the route on the map. It doesn't require any money or anything like that. Anybody can submit suggestions to this effort. Governments, individuals, business organizations. So what we're trying to do is get this on the map. If we get that on the map, then that enables the possibility of something like this happening down the line. And then it would go through the processes that normally would go through in that program. Now, the FRA indicated to me last year that they are studying this. They're coming up with the final round of the routes here in the next few months or so. So we need to get it in now if we're interested in doing something like that. The routes would, of course, be considered on a national level. There are a number of routes all across the country that want additional rail service. Mr. Meek was talking about the route down through Fletcher. That is one of the routes they said they would study, which would involve the Saluda Grade Trail. We're not talking about doing away with the trail. We know that's already in process. But there's 130 feet of right-of-way along that corridor, which means that there's plenty of room for trail and rail together. The Western Maryland Scenic Railroad has a very good example of that. Rail service and trails and all this pedestrian activity is all put together in one project. So we're not coming out against the trail.
Where is that at? I'm sorry. Can you
Western
repeat?
Maryland Scenic Railroad.
Okay.
And I believe I sent an email to your town clerk with that information earlier today.
I haven't seen that.
Okay.
So the only thing I've seen is my conversation back and forth with Mr. Meek.
Okay, I sent it this morning, maybe it hasn't got through to you, but I can double check and make sure you get that.
Okay, please do.
That email would have all the information on how to get them on board with this effort, who to contact, in addition to the things Mr. Meek mentioned about proclamations and
I was
getting in
just going to
touch.
say, if y'all would send me the proclamation so that I could have it, yes.
Is it a proclamation or a resolution that you need?
A resolution, basically, is what it
Okay.
is,
Okay,
an
so it's not a
endorsement.
proclamation, it's a resolution, okay.
Some of the areas are considering putting into the MPO process and getting various MPOs to sort of endorse it as an MPO, which would include a number of communities that will be taken care of by the MPO in that effort. So. Also, another thing, in addition to saying that we don't oppose the trail, we also want to be careful and make sure that no one is confusing this with what's already going on between Asheville and Salisbury. This is a totally different effort, futuristic, could be 20, 30, 40 years down the line, but if it gets on the map, then interested states and communities have the option of going back to FRA and then asking for money to study that line and move it on through the process like we did with Asheville and Salisbury. So that's the reason for wanting to get it in on the map. So then it's bona fide and you have something to work with. So in a nutshell, that's what we have. This information I sent to the clerk, and I'll make sure that you got it, does include the information from the FRA, shows some of the map work that's been done so far, and gives you some background on what the process has been so far and where it's going. So,
As of the time of me walking in here, I did not receive it. Okay.
I can check on that.
Okay.
Have my cell phone, I'll see, I'll bounce back or something.
So
Are there
I
any questions that you'd like to ask? I'd be free to.
So I guess I'm not really clear. So what do we need to do to get it on the map? We need to do a resolution, and then what happens? And then what's the next?
Well, if you endorse the proposal, then it would go to the FRA. And that's all you would do. You could wait for the FRA to say yea or nay,
And then they just say yes or no?
whether it gets on there or not.
Okay.
And Mayor, I might suggest, I know he mentioned the MPO, that
Mhm.
if you do the resolution, you might want to send it, and we can have
To
some
the MPO.
conversation with Tristan Winkler from the MPO, just to see if they have any suggestions on how this might possibly be vetted through them or endorsed.
So who else has to get on board to do this? It's not just us, is it?
Oh, no, we're trying to interest all the communities in western North Carolina on the particular routes, not only this route, but another route that would go east down toward Charlotte, Wilmington, Raleigh. Down through South Carolina, we're starting an effort to try to encourage them to send these in as well.
So on this route, who else needs to get on board?
In this area?
Yeah, for the route we're talking about, who else needs to sign on? Local
I think
governments?
here in North Carolina, it would be Asheville, Hendersonville, Tryon, down in South Carolina, Landrum, Spartanburg, Columbia, Charleston.
Have you spoken with any of them? Yeah,
We've had some discussions so far with some of those, but we haven't hit everybody yet.
okay. And what was the response?
Interested, but wanting, like you, more information as to what the process is and what particular you need, language that's needed for something to be sent to the FRA, where to send it, that sort of thing.
Okay.
For me, I'm glad you separated at that, because I think the email we got from you was, it was more of Salisbury to Asheville, so this is kind of, you gave us a pamphlet, I guess, last month, but yeah, it's kind of more that it's separated, now they see that. I'd love to get that more information. I guess one question, or actually two questions I have you did any, like, public, notified the public, see if any comments, feedbacks for the actual public around, or anything like that?
As far as the public awareness of the campaign?
Yeah, just to, see what the people in the community feel,
Right.
that type of thing. Have you done anything like that? Canvass the areas in North and South Carolina, these routes that you're looking at, or have you just approached a couple, handful of cities and towns?
Well, so far, that's what we've done. Through our organization, we pretty much know what a lot of the traveling public think as far as what they want, rail service. roads and other things like that, so.
Yeah, I know that what you think, but I'd like to at least, actually hear from the public, be the thing is what we need to go with right there. Also, just kind of curious, the land, is the land already purchased? How you get land with this? Is it,
For the entire route?
yeah, to the higher route, have you,
Well, it would run on private railroads through agreement with Amtrak.
so it's already established private
The
railroads?
only questionable section is the Saluda grade between Zirconia and down toward Landry.
Okay, so it's already established rail lines
Yeah,
that you're looking
that's
at?
going into rails to trails if the process completes and goes through, which means that there would be a possibility of reactivating at least a portion of that right-of-way for rail if somebody wanted to do something in the future. That's part of the rails to trails legislation.
That's another question, is there any eminent domain processes you're going to have to go through to get this? How many hundreds of acres have to be taken?
No, that's basically all railroad right-of-way or preserved right-of-way through rails to trails or that sort of thing.
So you're saying it's none? Okay, that's my two questions, thank you.
Have you talked to Conserving Carolina or the entities that's doing the Acosta Trail? You keep saying rails to trails, so
Yep.
are they not pulling up the railways to do the trails while they're clearing the right-of-way for
No,
Acosta?
they can't pull the rail up until NS, as far as the Saluda grade, they can't pull the rails up until NS consummates the transaction that they're selling it to them. And that has not happened yet.
So where you're proposing to put it, there's still trails, I mean, there's still
Yeah, the rail's still there.
rails there?
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah. And I think Mr. Lance mentioned the Asheville to Salisbury. That email I sent to the clerk did have the heading up at the top saying Salisbury to Asheville, but if you read further down in there, it goes into the other study, the FRA study. So I could probably try to separate that out so that it's not confusing.
Oh, that'd be great, that'd be great.
And you think the trail and the Amtrak train would run parallel to each other without an issue?
Well, there's 130 feet of right-of-way. That's wide enough for 6 railroad tracks to go through.
But not everywhere it's 130 feet
Well,
wide.
there's several miles down the steepest part of the grade that's much narrower.
I've heard some as narrow as 37 feet.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
So what would you do in that instance?
Well, there would have to be some decision made as to whether to go ahead with the project or whether or not trail could be worked in there somehow. So at that point, you'd really have to make a choice if you want to decide between one or the other. There are some other initiatives going on in this area you may be aware of. Hendersonville to Asheville, there's a group trying to start some rail service there, some rail passenger service. Of course, that's not on the Saluda grade line, but there is an effort down in Saluda to do some sort of rail recreational service between Saluda back toward Flat Rock. So that is ongoing at this time as well. And that's part of the state legislation. It's in the state budget that it's $1 million set aside to study those type of possibilities to see if they would work.
Mayor, can I just?
Oh, go ahead.
Is the plan, as far as the existing rail line that runs through Fletcher, just to use that existing rail line and not building additional rail line to
Yes.
accommodate passengers? So it would just be the Blue Ridge Southern
Right.
Watco?
You'd still have the same line out here. That's where the
Yeah.
train would run. Blue Ridge Southern would run it under contract.
Go ahead.
with
Look at it,
Amtrak,
pass it down.
whoever.
And the reason I ask is, with our town center project, at least one of the proposals talked about using a portion of some of the, I'll call it excess rail right-of-way. It goes 100 feet each way from both sides of the tracks. And at least the first proposal, and probably anything that's going to be successful on there, is going to have a request to encroach into that right-of-way a little bit, to use some of it, which so far, Watco, Blue Ridge Southern Railroad has been amenable to doing that, so it's just,
Like I said,
Just to
130 feet is
clarify.
a lot of right-of-way. You can put number of tracks, and so you don't really need all of that. All you basically need is 1 or 2 tracks at most, I think.
Do we have any other questions, council? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Catch you back to the meeting.
Yeah, well, if you want to come talk to us after,
Thank you so much.
we thank you for being here. All righty, moving on to item number 7, the approval of the lowest responsible bidder for street resurfacing projects. Mr. Kathy. Thank you for being here as always.
Hey, how are y'all?
Doing well. Hope you are.
There's not a whole lot to review. I know we've talked about the project before. We had 3 bidders, and Trace and Company, you know, just up the road on 25 here was our low at 172,309.30. So I don't know that there's a whole lot to discuss with it. Did y'all have any questions related to it?
Do we have questions? If not, do you have anything more?
No, I'm glad we got good competitive bids, and also the apparent lowest responsible bidder is under the estimate a little bit that McGill had provided, so that was good too.
Even better.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no questions, no comments, do we have a motion to approve Trace and Company as the lowest responsible bidder?
I just wanted to ask,
Oh, sure.
have we done business with them before? I'm sure you probably have.
I'm trying to think if they have worked as a subcontractor on this project before. They have done a couple of pipe replacements.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember them actually winning this project. Some local work I know that they did a lot of the work in downtown Hendersonville. That's just a project that I know of that they have done.
Well, at least they're not way cheaper than the next highest.
Yeah, no, they're not
Next
so
lowest
low
bidder.
that it was worrisome or anything
Right.
like that.
Okay, thank you.
And just for y'all's record as well, we send the bidder list out to a pre-selected list that we know there's been some demonstrated success and, you know, quality of work, and we send it out to at least 5 or 6 firms. And it's open to anyone that wants to bid on it, but that's kind of part of the help that McGill provides on this.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the advantages of that invited bid is you don't get, you know, we send it to plenty of people to make sure we get good numbers, but it's not just to everybody that you would have very serious doubts about their abilities to perform the work.
All righty.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions or comments? All righty. Do we have a motion to approve Trace and Company as the lowest responsible bidder?
Make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll say Joe made a second. We'll say you made a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, see y'all later.
Thank you,
Thank
Ben. All right.
I'm sorry, and we just got a little distracted down here. The motion and the second.
Sheila made the motion.
And then Trevor.
I made a motion.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry. That's right. Trevor made a motion, Jim made a second. I'm sorry.
Trevor motion.
We're debating about
And
who made the
Jim's going to get the
second.
next one.
Sorry.
I'll let
No
you
worries.
catch that next one, Jim.
All righty. Moving on to item number 8, the presentation from Pisgah Legal Services. We have Mr. Daniel Carey. Mr. Carey, thank you for being here. Thank you for all the work Pisgah Legal does as well.
Thank you, Mayor Blakely. Nice to be here, members of council. Daniel Carey with Pisgah Legal Services, and I live and work in Hendersonville, cover Henderson County, Transylvania, Polk, and Rutherford counties. And I always like coming before you. I always get a nice hearing from you all, and appreciate that. I wanted to thank the town manager and town clerk as well for accommodating me. So I'll be brief. I think you have essentially the PowerPoint presentation in front of you, which I will mercifully run through quickly, and you have some handouts as well. But I just thought it was important to update you on our work. And also remind you and invite you to send potential clients or people in need our way. I'm not here on bended knee seeking anything, as much as like to inform you about the work that this nonprofit organization does, and if we can be of help to your citizens, and we're happy to do so. As most of you may know, we are a nonprofit law firm based in Asheville, but with regional offices throughout Western North Carolina. And we provide legal assistance and advocacy to help low-income people in Western North Carolina just meet basic needs and try to improve their lives. And, you know, you do have to qualify for our assistance, which is 125% of the poverty level. A pretty low bar, sad to say. There are a lot of people that qualify because their annual incomes put them in a position, you know, to need civil legal assistance, and we're happy to provide that. We're still refining our 2023 numbers, so I've got some estimates in the next slide or two. But the bottom line is we've helped, you know, thousands of people throughout the year, and about 3/4 of our clients are women. And we do a lot of work with domestic violence prevention and so on. So I think I'll ask maybe to go to the fourth slide, or the fourth item, which is just a breakdown of our programs. We have 15 programs overall, and they're divided essentially into safety and security, housing and homelessness prevention, healthcare and income security, and then justice for all. The lion's share of our work is with domestic violence prevention and with homelessness prevention. We do a lot with healthcare and income security, and since it is tax season, I would remind you all and anyone listening that we help people file income taxes, and a lot of people don't. They may not rise to the level of needing to or being on the radar per se of the IRS. But if they're not filing income taxes, they may be leaving money on the table, such as an earned income tax credit or a child tax credit. And those can be game changers for folks who are just, you know, not making enough to think that they need to file those taxes. But if they do, they can get that money back. And we've helped a number of clients secure tens of thousands of dollars, literally, in tax refunds, which has been able to change their lives. So in this season, we're happy to do that. And we do a lot of help with Affordable Care Act navigation, helping people secure health insurance. As I said, these other programs, elder law, we're fighting a lot of scams, a lot of people taking advantage of our elderly population, veterans, consumer law, expunction and driver's license restoration. And on that real quick, it's just helping people clear up their records. We work with the district attorneys to do that. They're glad to see us come in and help clean up some of their paperwork. The other thing it does is it helps them be in a position to get a driver's license so that when they can get a job, and we know in workforce development we need folks who are eligible to work, but then they have to get to work, so we help them get their driver's licenses. Flipping the next couple is just that, in effect, while a lot of people, you know, I don't know if any of you are practicing attorneys, and I come from a family of attorneys, and they're the butt of a lot of jokes. There are a lot of attorneys out there, true, but for folks in need and folks who can't afford an attorney, there are precious few attorneys. We are largely the only game in Western North Carolina, pretty much west of Charlotte. If you need civil legal assistance, Pisgah Legal is pretty much who you're going to have to go to. And while we have 40 full-time attorneys, which is terrific, they're working in, 18 counties, and we get about 1,000 calls a week, literally, from folks who need help. So you can imagine the workload of those folks. But we're doing the best we can. If you go to the next one, which is the map, this is important just so where we are here in Fletcher, your folks can either go north to Asheville or south to Hendersonville for assistance, very nearby. Main thing is just kind of call the main numbers and see if we can be of assistance, and we have our intake folks who determine, how we can help and then how to steer folks to that help. The next page is just, I'll be, again, brief, just some of the highlights from 2023, which we're in the process of confirming, but we helped more than 23,000 people last year, including more than 7,000 children. And as I said, most of our work is in family law and homelessness prevention, approximately half of the work we do in those two areas alone. But we've helped secure and quantifiable financial benefits for people in the form of insurance or settlements or whatever, nearly $24 million, which is significant because that's roiling around in our communities and in our economies here. So that's very good. And then just for Henderson County, we've helped more than 3,500 people, and you can see the numbers in terms of those we've helped with housing and homelessness or to escape dangerous domestic violence situations, or to secure health care, or to file their taxes and perhaps get refunds and rebates. So those are all good news. The bad news is a lot of people are eligible. And those percentages you can see, about 14% of the folks that live in Henderson County are eligible for our services. Almost 20% of children that live in the county are eligible for those. And so we're just trying to make ourselves available as much as we can to folks. And I'm more than happy to take a question or two if you'd like. I think the really significant thing about Pisgah Legal Services is, in effect, we're an anti-poverty organization. We're really trying to get people out of a jam where they may not be on equal footing with opposing counsel or someone else that maybe has a lot of resources behind them. And so we try to represent those folks, get a fair shake for them, and make a difference in their lives, and just work things out. And I've talked about the homelessness prevention work we do. We're not pulling people off the street and helping them find housing. We're trying to help them maintain the housing that they're in. And, the rental market is really tight, and there are a lot of good landlords out there, and there's some less than good landlords out there, and we're often working with those folks. But the key is probably 80-90% of what we do doesn't go to court. It's not clogging things up. It's actually streamlining things, because again, once the attorneys start talking to each other and the parties can come together, we generally come up with a good resolution. So we've been at this a long time, since 1978, I think. And our director, Jim Barrett, has been with us for 41 years. It will be 41 when he finishes in August. And he's been a great leader, but we have a good search underway for a successor to Mr. Barrett. And confident that our board, our volunteer board, and our staff will find a good successor and maintain our level of service and our momentum.
I had a question.
Yes.
The annual income's listed as $33,125, and I just can't help but think that even 10, 15, 20,000 above that would still be barely making it through. Where will you get your income level from for this year? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, that is established. It's a federal number that.
Federal number?
Yes, it is. And you're right, though, Ms. Franklin, about being a little bit higher than that would still be someone in need. And there's a little bit of flexibility that we have for that. Depends on the nature of the case and what it concerns. We certainly encourage people to just make the call and inquire and let us run the traps and put someone through the process to determine if they're eligible or not. The other reason why it's important to call is if if they do call, and let's say, for example, we cannot help them for some reason, we can make a referral. We can get them to someone that perhaps can help them. But, yeah, those numbers are, and the reason we abide by those numbers is we have essentially two major funding sources. Grants, which can be private and often are. A big portion of our funding comes from private foundations. But also there are federal monies that trickle down to the state, then to the counties, and then in turn are divvied out to nonprofit organizations like ours. So there are certain rules that we have to follow, and we do. And the other portion is just private support we get from individuals throughout the region. So it's about an $11 million annual budget. We start over every year like every good nonprofit, so we're off and running in 2024, and as I say, hoping to maintain momentum.
75% of your clients being women, and then with the domestic, one of the main issues that you said was domestic violence and safety, so I imagine you work fairly closely with Safe Light?
We do. We're almost cheek to jowl. We actually have an attorney embedded in their office, so we have
I
one
could see that.
right there when they go down the hall. We also just, since it's interesting, the office that I'm in, we're renting space from Safe Light, so we're sort of, it's Peter and Paul helping each other a little bit. But yes, we do. And we work with other agencies as well, with Interfaith Assistance Ministry, with the Council on Aging, a variety of nonprofits where we, if we're not providing technical assistance, we may be just helping them with referrals. Along with DSS, we get a lot of referrals from the Department of Social Services. So it does take a village. We're part of that village, and happy to be so.
Do you have possibly a graph online, maybe at your website, that shows how your budget is broken up?
We do. And again, I want to say we're just weeks away from our 2023 annual report. We just want to make sure those numbers are accurate. But that will be posted online, and it'll be a very simple pie chart graph that shows, just as I said, sources of revenue and then expenses, and a pretty easy to, I think, understand image. But I am happy to say we're 4-star Charity Navigator approved, and we're a platinum level Candid GuideStar approved. So we're audited every year, and we have a good, clean bill of health. So and lots of reporting to do, as you might imagine, on those grants. So
thank you for what you're doing
thank you, Ms. Frank.
and answering those questions. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you all involved in the Connection Center project?
We are. Thank you, Mayor. We are. We're going to have, in the city of Hendersonville, the Connection Center, we're going to have one full-time attorney and one full-time social worker there Monday through Friday. And we have the ARPA funds to thank for that, and the city's, I think, judicious application of those ARPA funds. And so that'll be great, because as you know, that's a one-stop nonprofit shop. We can take a carousel of services there and help people.
Yeah, so people aren't falling through the cracks.
Yes, sir.
Well, and I want to say thank you, because I've had the opportunity, I've been in law enforcement for 26 years, and unfortunate opportunity to have to refer some folks to y'all, and followed some of those people through that process, and kudos to your folks that are giving a little extra and doing a little more to help those that don't have what they need. So thank you.
I will share that with my colleagues. I appreciate that.
Well, I have one more question for me. What can we do to support your work?
I'm sorry?
What can we do to support y'all's work?
Yeah, well, I know, and Mark and I have talked about this, so I'm not going to put you on the spot and say, well, we get a lot of support from cities and counties throughout the region. That is true, but, you can't help everybody, and you have policies that you follow, and I respect those. So what I would say is, talk us up, I think, in the community, and say, Pisgah Legal is doing good work, and if you can support Pisgah Legal, please do. And then the other thing that I said at the outset is just to steer folks our direction. We have enough to do, but we know folks are in need. And if we can get to them, it doesn't have to be a 6-month, 12-month long formal relationship that we have with them. If we can just get them on the phone and get one of our attorneys to talk with them, it might just be some simple advice that they need that'll get them in or out of something that they need to be in or out of. So I think just being mindful of our services, who we are, what we do, and then for the folks in your community, if you come across people that you think, need assistance, then by all means, just send them our way. It's just pisgalegal.org. They can go online, and they can just call the main number. And all of our phone attendants and intake people are bilingual, so they speak English and Spanish.
Great. I'm just curious, you've got that 33,000 threshold that you work with, but you're saying there's people that you can't help, you have to turn it back for whatever reason. I'm curious, like, on renters and stuff like that, when you meet that threshold of that $33,000, do you vet the people that are coming into your office to make sure they're not like habitual people that, like, every 3 months they're in your office to help with an eviction or something like to that effect?
We do, and I want to be careful because I'm not on the intake end, but we have trained and seasoned intake coordinators who know the right questions to ask. And while we absolutely respect the privacy and anonymity of all of our clients, as a law firm would do, we know because we have a lot of longevity, not just with Jim Barrett, but we have a lot of attorneys who've been with us a number of years, and they know folks, and they know the landscape. And so, the most important thing we can do is open that funnel wide and listen all we can, make sure that we're going to get them to the right place or get them to someplace else, whether it's within our organization in one of our programs. But I think if we're going to err, we'll probably err on the side of inclusivity and just say, well, let's listen to all of that first, find out if it's legitimate. But all of that intake is about qualifying people. So we have to run, as I said, quick checks on income and any conflicts of interest that may exist. And the idea is, again, to touch somebody, hopefully just one time, get them on their way. Now, folks run into trouble. Everybody is just one small crisis away from falling way back. And so sometimes we're helping folks and then we'll see them again. It's true. We'll have repeat customers, if you will. But I don't think anybody that's coming to us is really scamming us or anything like that. I feel like folks that get to us are in dire need and we're there to help them. And I think it's our first obligation to give them the benefit of the doubt.
So you're doing gut feeling, or you're doing, like, you keep records?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We keep records,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. They're very secure and they're very private, but as I said,
As they should be, yeah.
between the records and our seasoned staff, and we kind of know who's who. And I think that's where frankly, we leave a little discretion to the attorneys themselves, to our attorneys, as to whether they know we can really help this person. But it's a triage system. When you're taking 1,000 calls a week, or you're helping more than 23,000 people a year with 40 attorneys plus pro bono attorneys, and I didn't mean to overlook the terrific support we get from the private law community. But it's a triage system, and you have to figure out who's going to go first and how are we going to do, how are we going to prioritize those things.
Thanks.
All right, do we have any other questions? All right, Mr. Carey, we thank you for being here, and we also thank you all for all the work that you do at Pisgah Legal. It's impactful. Thank you.
And just to share with y'all, we, right now, we don't have a set aside or a pool of money that we budget for supporting nonprofits,
Yeah.
or a process. You have in some very, very few instances supported a program that was taking off, like some seed money or something for a capital project, but not very often. And some local governments have it, but we just haven't gone there yet.
Sure.
So, just for everyone's information about that.
Thank you. All righty, moving on, item number 9, the report on,
Yeah.
do you want to skip that?
No, well, I mean, I'll.
I know we went over it last
Ask for
week
any
as well.
questions, 'cause I
Yeah.
kind of went over in detail last
Sure.
week. But before I forget, and I know we had someone here under public input, and I know we normally don't address everything under public input right in the meeting, but just for everyone's benefit and the folks in the audience, the property that was referenced before at the corner of Woodhill.
It's no longer a
and
gas station,
25.
yeah.
Yeah, it was, a convenience store, gas station years ago. It was kind of a farm stand and now no use. The owners, I don't have the name of record of the owners, but our planning and zoning directors had a lot of communication with them. What was supposed to go in there was a Dodge's gas
Convenience
station.
store,
Convenience store. I know not a lot of people thrilled about that, but it is zoned to allow for that on 25 there. That has, to our knowledge, fallen through. And the reason is they went through a traffic impact analysis, and the traffic mitigation improvements were so onerous or difficult, they wanted a traffic signal there, and so they have withdrawn that, at least the plans we've heard are withdrawn to do that at this point. So we have been in communication, because there have been complaints from the public about the appearance, and obviously, no one's happy with that.
Yeah.
And there's some code enforcement things we can do to make them come on, like someone selling cars on there, that's a violation. But we gotta tell the property owner, so we call the property owner, and they're not in town, they're out of town. The latest, what's supposed to happen is they're applying to the state to remove the underground storage tanks on the site, because there are some to be dealt with. And I guess once that's approved, then they remove them, and then their plan after that is they do site improvements, hopefully demoing the buildings. That's the latest we know on it. Obviously, we'd like to see, I guess from a staff perspective, highest, best use, something attractive there that, the public would generally be supportive of. But we also have to work within what our, zoning allows within our land development code, unless it takes a change of use, which requires approval from the planning board and/or council. But right now, it's allowed by right, that use. So that's the latest, just so you all know, because I know it's generated discussions. I know Councilman Player here lives in South Chase, so that's
So as a
gateway
resident of
to-
South Chase,
Yeah.
myself too, I can say, is there some way to maybe nudge them to at least
Yeah.
tidy that property up and secure it a little better?
I will have another conversation. We're reaching out as frequently as we can, and I know Eric Roof, our planning and zoning director, will call, and sometimes that does help to say, hey, this doesn't look very nice out there, whatever you guys can be doing. If we can do it within our regulations and force them to do it, we'll do that. But yes, we can reach out and say, we're getting, and we've done that already once or twice, that there's been complaints about the condition, and the town's not pleased with that.
It's a benefit to them to have it cleared and prepped to be sold anyway.
Sure.
No one wants to look at it like that.
Yeah, it's not, exactly. So, yeah, I'll make a note to reach out again and check on the latest, and also that we're continuing to get complaints about the condition of the property.
That'd be great.
And if they can start the site clearing, and I don't know why other than maybe it gets in the way of where the specific locations of the underground storage tanks are, why they can't be doing that. But sometimes, companies aren't motivated until they've got something in hand there to work with. But that's the latest, so I just wanted you all to know that.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you taking note of that and following
Yeah.
up. While we're on the topic of that area, and then we can get back on track, I did actually have a resident, I was gonna bring it up at the end of the council meeting, talk about better lighting on that intersection, and also to ask to move the street sign for better visibility. Is that something we could do?
Improve the street lighting there, you said?
Yeah, and move the street sign for better visibility. And I did drive over there. It is, yeah, it's dark, and they specifically asked for the street sign to be higher, but if I'm recalling, it might just need to be moved towards the street better.
The street sign itself?
Yeah.
For Wood Hill.
Yeah, that might be something our public works
Yeah, we
can
can
do.
probably do
The
that
street
pretty
lighting,
easily.
we'd have to get in touch with Duke Power about that, since we pay for the street lighting. I mean,
Right,
but
yeah.
we don't control where the light goes, but we can make requests on
Yeah.
that.
I think that might be helpful if council's okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All righty. Do we have anything else on that? Okay.
I'm just making some notes here, so.
Yeah, sure. And then we'll
Can
get-
you not move the light, and can you just make it to where it's a stronger or better light? I mean, are
Yeah,
you talking about
yeah.
moving the entire light?
Well,
There isn't one.
No, there isn't one?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we'll
they
look
never
at
said
that.
Duke could have one.
Oh, there's not one at all? Okay,
It's dark over there. It is at night.
okay.
There's some lighting back around the pump station that was installed
Yeah.
right on the building, but nothing there at the intersection.
There's a pole there, you should be able to.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll look at that and see what we can do with Duke, and then anything we can control on the street sign. We took on the road sign, street sign.
Yeah.
Yep. No
Thank you,
problem.
Mark.
Sure.
All righty, now,
Yeah, I don't know if you want him, and I know Trevor wasn't here last week, so I don't know if there was any questions about the report.
yeah, why don't you, can you hit some of the, I guess, highlights again, since Trevor wasn't here? And then we can see if we have any
So
questions.
Sure, so basically, this is a report on the first set of initial performance measures that I've been talking to you about for some time. Worked with staff to establish a list, and then we measured activity in this report from July of last year through December, so the last 6 months of 2003. And this is our first report on the first draft of performance measures. And just so you know, it's going to continue to take more enhancements or revisions, or maybe adding things, deleting things. So, and with y'all's input, it would be helpful, what things are important as far as trying to maintain a high standard of service in some of these core services that we're providing to the public. And some of the things are more internal, like the finance and the clerk activities. Well, and some of the clerk goals here are also help with getting information out to the public, so that's not all internal. But finance is a little bit more of the goals. Public Works, I think we have some pretty good established measures there. The amount of solid waste we're trying to divert to the landfill, so the goal there is obviously the more we can divert of municipal solid waste, which is what everything people throw in the garbage bag that goes in the cart that goes to the landfill, what we can do to get people to recycle more. And we've got a good number of people recycling, and I think volume recycling, but we didn't have a goal, what's a reasonable percentage to be striving for. The data came back about 17.7% to a little over 20% is being diverted to recycling instead of landfill of the total solid waste we're collecting. So, I can hit any other highlights people are interested, or y'all are interested on this. The police department provided quite a bit of data on steps they're taking to pursue these goals, one being engaging the community, another being the quality of progressive professional police services, and then the third that they were looking at in here on empowering the department's personnel to perform at their highest capacity, which gets at training, make sure that they get the latest training and the amount of training to be providing the level of police services that the public expects and what the chief is trying to lead in providing. And I went through all of those, kind of where we're at and kind of the productivity out of it. And then under planning and zoning, probably maybe the biggest thing of note, the code enforcement, which is always, it's a tough one because there's some subjectivity. This is like our solid waste ordinance, and people, some homes where we get a complaint that there's an accumulation of junk in the yard, those take some time to resolve. Sometimes they're resolved quickly. It's a soft contact letter notice from our planning and zoning department, and they clean it up. Sometimes it takes a longer period of time because, we hear what's going on with the situation, and there's often personal problems going on, hardships that people are going through, that these things sometimes happen. So we try and work with them, but, if it don't get resolved and it's particularly bad, it goes through the steps in our code enforcement ordinance, kind of like what we dealt with the One Oak Brook Road property, which was quite bad. And then this last point, I guess I'd mentioned we're not as far along on some of the Parks and Rec performance measures. The one they have got together that's fairly specific, and they'll start on a quarterly basis with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, is kind of a rating system of the general condition of our parks. So again, trying to keep them at a high level of appearance and use. So.
Okay. Questions,
Comment? Questions, comments? Again, this is our first reporting period, and I plan, and I know it was in some of the goals I was working with y'all and council, come back and report again. So I'd like to, in the next 6-month period, give you an update on this.
All right. And again, we thank you all for working on that. I know it's really burdensome, so thank you.
And I really want to acknowledge the staff. I mean, I worked a lot on trying to get a list together and then working with them to get some feedback. Can we measure this? Is this helpful? And they worked hard to put this together and start tracking it. So that's a good amount of effort. And it's a work in progress still as we enter this.
And well, we thank them for their efforts, and Thank you. All righty, moving on to item number 10, or do we have anything else there? We'll move on? Okay. Moving on to item 10, the status of the proposed revisions to the contract with Fletcher Fire and Rescue. And we talked about this a little bit last week as well. I know, Trevor, you weren't here. I will say, I think council had a couple of concerns with some of the revisions, and council, correct me if I misspeak or misrepresent anything you all said. You all wanted to have the ability to request a presentation, have the ability to request or to have a semi-annual or quarterly report, something regularly scheduled. They want us to go back and ask for the 3-member appointment. They thought that was fair. I don't disagree. And they do want some kind of advertisement, and if the fire department won't do that, then maybe we can. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to advertise. Public knowledge.
We can notify when their meetings are held. We just need to make a point to do that. Put it on our website.
Website, newsletter, things like that.
Social media.
Did I represent everything council said correctly? Or do we have any other thoughts? Sheila, it sounds like you might.
Did you want to go ahead and speak?
Go ahead.
I know that we were questioning number 19. We weren't really happy with the fact that we could suggest, but we can't appoint people on the board for the fire department. And I think that it was suggested that we could bring along 3 of the 9, but then the way I read it is that you can recommend, but then they decide. So I didn't
the
really
final decision,
understand,
yeah.
why is this an issue and how is this a problem that we can't even appoint 3, let alone 4, which would be closer to half anyway. If I remember correctly, last Monday, we were talking about how we're not real happy with that. That was
Yeah.
the one major thing, because that is what started us here to begin with, was the lacks in their bylaws and having same members for years and years, self-appointed. And we just wanted more transparency and more say-so on the board.
Yeah, I will say, if I do recall correctly, they are revising their bylaws so that members aren't there indefinitely. I think they want to do some kind of term, I don't know if it's 3 years or whatever, but whatever they set in term as, they'll have to be reappointed at the end of that term. I don't think they were in favor of term limits, if I remember correctly. And I think what we were suggesting, I think you're accurately covering it, is that if they had, one opening, and that opening wasn't somebody that we suggest, or somebody that we had not suggested, we'd be able to suggest 3 or so, I guess, members, or, 3 members, and then they would choose out of those 3 who they wanted to recommend. However, I'll say I don't disagree with you that we should be able just to appoint individuals, but it seemed to me that was more of a sticking point to them, so I think we were trying to find a middle ground. But if that's where the council wants to go, I don't have a problem going back and advocating for that. I'm sure you don't either, Trevor.
I was thinking that they was wanting to have, I guess, the final say in that. Like, we picked 2.
And they chose out of the 2.
And I was thinking during the meeting, I think it was more, it come down to basically having 4 members on that board that lives in, that was a concern, that lives in the town limits, and they got that. Well, now if it drops down that number, we would put an application process, narrow it down to like 2, then they would pick the 2. I think that's what it was, so they could still
Yeah, I
have
think that's accurate.
some control, kind of meet in the middle type thing.
It said, shall appoint 3 of the 9, and then down
Right.
here in the blue, it says not comfortable with allowing council authority to appoint fire board members, and would consider revising their bylaws to allow council to recommend the fire board would have the final say on the appointments. So I feel like we're back to square one on that one. There's no, I always look for a win-win as well. But there's no give and take on that at all, because that's basically what we're doing now. We recommend somebody and then they turn them down if they choose to do so, as opposed to the town being able to appoint at least 3, which is not even half.
Yeah. I think it's a fair point. And again, we're trying to meet in the middle, and if that's where the council's at, I'm happy to go back and advocate for that, because I do think that's fair, particularly given how much of their budget we give.
Oh, I know that's where I'm at. I think that we ought to be able to appoint them.
And the question, I think, may be on their mind, and Trevor, you, coming from that volunteer fire service side for 30-something years now, to put people on the board who have no clue, no idea, no concept of where you buy equipment from, what type of equipment you need. I can remember years ago, this very council, some of the town council folks thought you just went out to a used car lot and bought a fire truck. That you could, why can't you go to Walmart and buy a nozzle or a hose? And the NFPA is very specific on that equipment and how it's to operate and how it's to function. And so if that's a fear of theirs, then let's encourage them that whoever goes on there, spend some time with those folks, the folks that are nominated, that they set aside some time to go up there and learn and be taught, and that way they understand when the board decides on equipment they're going to buy or people they're going to hire or the processes, that they better understand that, because it is a profession. And it's a very specific profession that has rules and regulations that they have to follow under. So, and if that's a sticking point for these board members of who we're going to send on there, then maybe that's a negotiation we can make to say, okay, fine, these folks that we had nominated to go on there, if you have a concern about that part of it, then let's work out some type of arrangement to get them up to speed, knowledge-wise, what they need to know.
Like orientation?
Like an orientation, yeah. Whoever would go on that board so that they better understand the fire department, its operations.
Now, they
Does
do-
that exist? Yeah, I was gonna say,
They
does that
they do
exist
something
now?
like that now. When
Do
the,
they?
when
Okay.
the person comes in, and James, he's one of the members, he can probably tell you too, is they have a, I guess, on orientation, they're working at like, I guess, a book or a packet, last time I
Okay.
heard. I haven't gotten real depth in that, so I guess it's still in the works where they bring people up to speed and stuff,
Okay.
right up to the chief and stuff. I think what that's talking about is basically, like, we'll do an application, 10 people applied for it, we'd pick like the 2 people, and then say, here's the 2 people we like, now which ones do you like too? It's like a combination of a give and take a little bit.
A collaboration.
Yeah, and they'll pick out of that too, that type of thing, but we can definitely go back with all the stuff that this council has concerns about. This is gonna be a working process, I honestly, I think we told them that too, that this ain't gonna be fixed in the month, it's gonna be.
It's gonna be
several
some time,
months worth
yeah.
of- Because they gotta do some word on a couple of items too, to bring back as well.
Yeah, they agreed to quite a bit, so.
Yeah, they did, they agreed probably to, I'd say 95, 98% of the stuff, so,
Yeah.
which is,
That's
very
good.
positive, very positive.
Mark, did you have anything for that? Or you think we got everything that you needed to hear?
I've got everything, and I got notes from some of the things that you
Okay.
gave an update on since y'all's discussion last week.
Okay.
So I think right now, what next steps is, we're waiting to hear.
Back some of their revisions
Yeah.
from, that's the language in there, get back together.
So I don't know if you wanted to bring these issues back to them once you hear from them on their reaction on some of these things that are up in the air, or send discussion notes before then, from what you discussed last week and tonight. It's up to you. I mean, and I can help facilitate that if you'd like.
Maybe discussion notes, what do you think, Trevor? I'm happy to sit down and meet again. Actually, let's try to sit down and meet again.
So let them finish their stuff, so we didn't have
Yeah.
multiple meetings, and they
Yeah,
can come back
yeah.
and tell them what we found from our
Well-
board meeting, and
I mean, that
Well,
seemed
that's
to be
the-
the next step, but I'm just asking in light of the discussion.
Well,
That
if
makes
that's the
sense.
case, why don't we send them the discussion notes as well, so they can be thinking about that?
that some of the concerns our council had.
Right.
We could, and let them talk about that, discuss it for their meeting. Would that-
And then they
would
can
that
come
help,
back.
James, too? I'm using that. If we give us discussion notes with your meeting out there, would that help as well?
Yeah, it would speed up.
It'd speed up process?
So how about we send discussion notes
Okay.
as well?
And can you send
Council
those,
okay with?
can you send
Go
the
ahead.
discussion notes out to us too? Since I wasn't here, I'd like to see the discussion notes, so.
Yeah, I mean, Mayor kind of paraphrased everything
I started to
that
say,
was
somebody
discussed
can
from
just
last
summarize the
week.
concerns.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. Please don't think that I'm discrediting that at all.
no,
Because
I
for
mean, this
you
is
to
the
get
work,
to this
yeah.
point is wonderful. I just felt like that was, aside from safety issues and concerns we had, that was one of the main things that I was upset about. I'd like to see them hire more people on board that, come from a firefighter background. I've seen interest from people that, work in fire departments and stuff, and I hope that in the future that they'll consider doing more of that, because they're the most experienced and understand the protocol of the whole industry and can be a huge help.
Well, they do a great job, and they undertake a lot on a day-to-day basis, because I listen to it on the radio every day, and they're faced with a lot of stuff that a lot of people would cringe, and it's commendable. So I'm just glad we've gotten to where we've gotten and moving forward.
Very
from there.
grateful.
Well,
And just
okay.
remember, their responses which you received, that you've discussed, you know, I think the mayor and Preston, Mayor and Trevor didn't say, well, council's fine with your reaction. No, this is, there was going to be more give and take on this, hopefully.
Well, I appreciate y'all's feedback. We'll go back and represent that well.
Thank you.
All righty, moving on to item number 11, discussion of the town center developer prospects. We talked about maybe a consultant last week.
Yeah, and, you know, again, the last direction from council was to reach out back to, you know, we had two developer groups, Brad Goodson with the Carlin Company and Windsor Autry. You wanted staff to reach back out to Brad Goodson, and he's kind of withdrawn right now because he was having a difficult time finding some partners to work on this that felt they could bring something to the table at this point in time. So, I mean, you can go back to Windsor Autry and give them a shot to at least put something together through a due diligence period if you're okay with a letter of intent or I guess on this. There is some consultant help out there. It's and one company that I've reached out to. I saw them at a conference for the North Carolina City County Management Association, and I've since reached out, and we've got a conference call set up. Eric Roof and I are going to have a Zoom or Teams meeting with the rep, and just so you know, this company, they're called Retail Strategies. You can go to their website, you can see the type of work they're doing. They do have multiple clients across North Carolina, not a ton of clients, but they've worked in communities and have had some success. And what they do is they kind of analyze what are the they look at your community and your market and see what are some potential retail restaurant opportunities or potential, and obviously work on a report on it. But then they also look, they do have consulting services of kind of, well, what does your community want? What does the market maybe support? And some help kind of marrying the realtors or the property managers and the developers, or the realtors and developers, to find clients that can come and help develop this and get to a partnership. Kind of like back to our prior developer agreement that we had with Lewis Real Estate Group and the Waddells. But this looks at a broader, more national scope, and then getting it back down. But they have varying consulting services to kind of look at the whole picture, what's the community trying to achieve, and have good contacts. I did ask them, do you have some developer and they said yes, and they try and get all that working together at the same time. It'll depend on the level, what we want to do or consider doing. So we'll have a conversation, we'll work on a proposal, and then have hopefully a representative from the company talk to you all here about that and see if that's something we might want to consider moving forward. And I've thought about it in the past, it's just, we kind of let the developer lead that on the front end, and maybe it might be really useful to have more information about what the market can support, what they're seeing from national, regional retailers. So, next week, we'll have that call, and then we'll work on the proposal side.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Looking forward to hearing more
I would
from-
hold off calling the Windsor All-Tree
That's
group
fine.
because they were very clear that they were kind of in it to make money. It's a business. And so their proposal to us, I wasn't 100% with, and the other guys pulled out. So
Yeah.
I would like to hear from this other group and see what they can provide for us before we go back. Because I don't think we're going to persuade Windsor All-Tree a whole lot in any direction from the plan that they've already presented.
And if you get this information, you could bring them back in and say, this is
And then-
what we want, but you've articulated it, and you've got something to back it up a little
Yeah.
bit better, of what's realistic, let's just say at this point in time.
Exactly.
Remember that the market and the economy is constantly changing. It gets harder or easier, depending on all kinds of things happening out there with retail environment, interest rates, you name it. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
I think
thank
that
you.
sounds good. Any other questions, comments? All righty, moving on to your manager's report.
Okay. I know I mentioned last week, but a couple of weeks ago, we met with some of the representatives from the Housing Assistance Corporation, or HAC, and this was to look at the possibility of maybe an affordable housing element being on some part of the town center property, most likely on the north side where we've master planned some residential uses. But we wanted them to see, have they ever worked on this? And they have some contacts in the region where there could be a commercial component to it. And so they're reaching out. We haven't heard back from them, but that's what we're attempting to do, see if there might be a partnership there where we can, help with affordable housing, workforce housing, and try to achieve some of the goals of the commercial development we're trying to facilitate. So, next thing, just a reminder at our March meeting, because of the primaries and town hall being a polling place, we'll have the March agenda review meeting upstairs in the multipurpose room. And then we'll also be impacted by that with early voting starting in October and going up to the general election. So our regular meeting in October will have to move upstairs, and then the November agenda review would also have to go up there. Next thing, the tennis court facilities. We've been in some communication with Buster Brown, who is interested in a potential partnership with the town to develop more tennis facilities, most likely next to our fairly new multi-court project. And we've got a meeting set up for the 21st of this month. So Mayor and Sheila and myself, to talk to him a little bit more of what's his expectations, how might the town possibly partner to do this. I mean, there's a lot of questions to answer on this before this gets legs, so to speak, as far as moving forward. And so, but we did get that set up, and we've been trying to chase down a good time for everybody to get together. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, unless there's questions on any of this, we do these meetings with our legislative delegation to go over legislative priorities and specific projects we're trying to get assistance with, funding-wise. I'll be working on our next one with our state legislative delegation folks, so Senator Moffitt and Representative Balkum. So I'll be working the next month to get that set up. And then after that, Kai Lauder, I guess will be our contact from U.S. Senator Budd's office, and then Tommy Lauder from Congressman Chuck Edwards' office. We'll set something up jointly with them. So, and that's all I had. Unless there's any questions.
Any questions?
What time is the meeting on the 21st? I forgot.
10 o'clock.
Well, before we adjourned, I just wanted to talk about the Greenway extension again, because I didn't get the sense that council was ready to move forward on that, continue talking with Conservative Carolina about the matching grant. So I'm curious to where council's at on that, if y'all could provide any feedback there. Or if we need to, I'm not sure if you weren't here last week, do you need an overview of that?
Well, I got this right here, but I'd like to look over it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Review of the.
Well, Mark, did you get a quick overview of that?
So, as you know, we've been trying to work with Conserving Carolina to kind of be our partner agency and to help with identifying grants for the Greenway extension. And what we're focusing on again here is not just all the Greenway plans throughout town, which quite frankly would take a long time if any of these will ever be funded within the bigger plan, but really focusing on extending from the park, the Cane Creek Greenway to whatever we might call it, the Meritor Greenway, going on the Meritor property, paralleling Cane Creek, and trying to get it ultimately outside the town limits to the French Broad, and it would be part of a larger regional network. But, so Conserving Carolina has been trying to identify grants and kind of be one of our main partners on this, and they have identified one. It's something called Connecting Communities to State Trails, and they're waiting for some additional clarification on the guidelines requirements. Right now, our understanding is it's a $250,000 grant. You have to match it dollar for dollar, so if we went for the max, it'd be a $250,000 local match. You can't do paved trails with this one. It'd have to be a soft trail. So we could, if we would get, let's just say with local match and the grant, $500,000 to work with a soft trail, so we, can't be asphalt or concrete on there. I would still really highly recommend that we come back and do asphalt overlay on it. This could get the base done and get the path, do a lot of that work, and get the initial trail set up. It's just long-term for maintenance. We really need to look at it being a hard trail. And if you get federal monies, it requires ADA and some things, and it has to be a hard trail, so a paved trail. So that's the latest. McGill had done an estimate on the grant we're talking about right now. That was before they knew it. The latest update with Rebecca from Conserving Carolina is that this grant can only be a soft trail. So McGill's estimate was a paved, so they would have to revise that and see what distance if it was a soft trail, which would probably be obviously further because it's a lot cheaper to do the soft trail. So that's the latest. You don't need a decision tonight, but I know you're bringing this back up because
I just wasn't clear if we wanted to.
Yeah.
I think the guidance you all were looking for last week was just if we want to even continue exploring this or moving forward. And I wasn't super clear from council, and maybe that's just me misunderstanding. But however, I did want to remind council that, and we talked about this in public comment, or it was mentioned in public comment, that 94% of residents strongly or somewhat support the extension. 89% support the connection to a larger network that goes outside town limits. And I think, Mark, you mentioned that we thought we could continue keeping up maintenance with public works and park staff, correct?
Yes.
And we would probably get a police vehicle so we can patrol it.
I mean, you don't need police cars running up and down there.
Right, but some kind of ATV, right,
yeah,
exactly.
and like we use that on our current trails with Parks and Rec staff. I know the police were trying to get their own to do some patrol on it.
But you stated we need more staff, right?
I think ultimately, not right away, but I think if this gets built, and let's say we get the grant, we get federal funding too, which we will ultimately get additional assistance. Plus, we need to lobby our legislators, and that's part of some of these meetings, is to say, we're trying to extend this trail. We need help identifying federal, state resources to get this built, so it's not all on the backs of Fletcher taxpayers to be footing the bill. I mean, you'll be doing match and contributing monies, and your fund balance is great, and you've got that restricted fund balance too, that's for capital projects. But, I mean, getting that to them so that they can help identify it, and just knowing that are we continuing to work on this? I mean, it's been a priority because the public's asked for it.
Right.
And even beyond that, the community survey that we did, which was pretty comprehensive, we had some other surveying that was done prior to that, and that was...
Rose Associates?
But no, we did some informal at the park with park users, so...
But your grant money isn't going to be paid for your staff.
No.
The grant money that you're talking about will go for the trail. It won't it's not going to offset the extra cost for staff for Parks and Rec or possibly police. I'm just making a point.
Sure. Can we get an estimate of that cost of the maintenance and all that? I guess that question is, this for me, is can you get that from McGill? I know that if that's the base they put down, can they give us an estimate of the cost to put the asphalt on it, just so we can have a actual?
We have that.
Yeah, we have that.
Their first, they didn't know, we got an update from Rebecca Robinson with Conserving Carolina. She just found out now it has to be soft trails. Our understanding initially for that connecting community state trails was that we could do paved, hard trails. So, I had it on the dais, and I think I had an email that, what they did a map.
When do you need, when did you need a decision? You said we don't have to decide right away. When is it you need a decision?
As soon as we know when the grant deadline's going to be, then we can bring it back in enough time for you to take action on it.
With
Or
this,
consider taking action.
I'm just kind of looking at this real quick. With this, I guess, map right here, it looks, I think Jim trying to help me a little bit with this. I guess they're talking about we can move, instead of doing the, I don't know, section, this small section right here, we're going by Greenleaf, the people from the park can go up Howard Gap, I guess sidewalk up across and back down alongside of the 25 and to the park. We don't have to put a parking area there now, what you're saying.
Yeah.
They can use that route to do that.
They could, yeah. I mean, we may want to try, well, see, we don't own the, we'd have to get some, we're working on, Charlie Owen, who owns that first piece there off of 25, where the creek is and the bridge. He owns that first section of land, and then it's that huge piece that the town has that runs to the creek.
So not all the property owners have signed off on this?
He has indicated, we just reached out to him again, that he will provide a easement so that we can do the trail along that small section that runs across his. The only other property owner that we may have to deal with, and this is just based on some discussions or analysis that Conserving Carolina has done on it, Rebecca had worked on, and you heard from, was possibly the Westfelds on the north side of the creek, if we need any area to like come up and around, because the plan would be go under the bridge and then come up onto 25 and then back down the other side. Yeah.
Right now, they can go up 25, walk all the way down.
This is assuming the connection, and Fernleaf is providing the property. If we leave the park, go along the Fernleaf property and go underneath the bridge there over 25 and come up and around on the sidewalk and then cross back. The other part of this, and this is bigger picture on it, but we've done some of the estimates as a bridge. And instead of having to go underneath the bridge over 25 and coming up, you continue underneath and cross over on a bridge, a pedestrian bridge.
What about the rail through there?
We'd be going underneath it.
Underneath that?
Yeah, you're underneath it, and we have had conversations with Watco or Blue Ridge Southern Railroad, and they're open to it, and we haven't had, final approval on it. They would need more, but they're open to it. It wasn't a no, you can't do that. They've been really good to communicate with and try and work on things.
But what you're talking about, that's a different project, that's later on, you're just looking at the...
Yeah, what they're trying to do right here with this, if we go after the grant we've been talking about, we'll be starting right at the, the 25 bridge there, the Highway 25 bridge, and continuing there, yeah. And you could get to it on the sidewalks, like you were saying, from Howard Gap, or if you're like a resident of South Chase, leave there, come on the sidewalk, and then...
Sidewalk and back
and then go
around.
down, yeah.
You don't think there's a need for parking anywhere?
I think it would be helpful in there. I don't know how big it would have to be, or if that would fill up so quickly if it's right there at the, coming off the sidewalk onto the property.
Because that would be my
Yeah.
only concern with that part is, I know how folks are sometimes and just pulling into the entrance
Yeah,
of South
and
Chase
just-
there and just
Parking.
filling up the
Yeah.
side of the road to get out there and walk that trail
Yeah.
instead of coming onto the park,
Yeah.
getting out.
I mean, those are things to think about. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question.
So isn't the plan to come from the park? Or are you saying it's just going to start at the bridge?
It starts right there at the bridge.
We're saying starting at the bridge with
On
this
25?
ramp. Yes.
You'd have to cross 25 and use the sidewalks to get to the next
You
section.
could start at the park, but you'd go Howard Gap Road down, cross 25.
And you'd have to go all the way through here.
But yeah, the project they're looking at looks like it starts here to here.
What happened to that idea?
That's, I guess that'd be part 2, phase 2 later on.
The best is to
How
leave
about
the
not get
park
across
and go
25?
across the but Fernleaf's working on some, I'm trying to remember all the issues. I know they were working on these little access points to the creek. So some of that's got delayed, but they're on board to have a leg go across the Fernleaf property, because that'd be the
That helps
best.
them.
Oh, and we've got the actuated crosswalker that, where you come up to it and the flasher.
I just don't want a trail to nowhere. Like, when you go all the way out here, where's it go from there? Will it loop back around?
Looks like a circle right there.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like
gonna
at the
it's
park,
gonna
and you
have
go
an
down and come
endpoint,
back.
and you gotta come back. I mean,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Being the new guy on the block,
yeah.
when we get to that point, who then would take over to go, like we said, I think she said in her presentation, on the 26 project,
Yeah,
they've made
yeah.
accommodations for the trail to go into there. From there, if it was gonna go over to Westfeld Park, who would be responsible for that?
Either us or the county, and I understand there's, not as big of an appetite for the town to pay, because you're going outside the
Right.
town limits,
That's- yeah.
and that's obviously a concern, should we be paying for that, or be facilitating the whole project? The county, really, I mean, they're working on a larger regional greenway system. I mean, I know Custa's the biggest, and it's under construction right now. But the Taproot Dairy Development, they've reserved space for that, on that side. So the county, or it could be us if we wanted to, make it happen before they do. It would end there, and you gotta come back. I mean,
Just loop.
yeah, I mean,
it's
we're
no different
we're trying to
than Greenway
start
now,
somewhere.
yeah.
Well, our current trail right now, if you want to call it a concern about a trail to nowhere, if you go in the park and you go to the end of the Cane Creek Greenway, it ends at the railroad tracks. So you got to turn around and come back. Or you can take that little loop trail that was added to mix it up. No.
It's phase 1.
Well, do we have any other questions? Y'all have some questions? Comments?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, we'll look at, I can bring back some estimates on ultimately, like additional staffing and equipment to do it.
And that was my concern in the
Yeah.
email I sent you
Yeah,
this
yes,
week,
yeah.
was making sure the chief wasn't overtaxed, that they had access in case something happened out there by
Right.
providing some type of side-by-side in the fire department.
Yeah, and-
Public Works.
And we'll want to get input with the design to see, if they have suggestions on how it's designed or how we get down there. But, I mean, essentially, it's an ATV, UTV going down the trail. And then the staffing would be a year to year and a half out, because it'll take time to design it, to build it, make it operational. That gives you a little bit of time for the additional staffing operational cost.
I guess what's the question, though? I think?
Oh, go ahead.
It says with Meritor plant, without, what's the difference? I'm looking at the little sheet right here. The cost comes down, less payment. I was just trying to figure out what's the difference of estimates right here. Why was it?
He's talking about where it says without Meritor plant and with the Meritor
Yeah,
plant.
it has the estimate from McGill, it says 451 is without, and with the plant is 541, almost $100,000 more.
Well, with the plant, and that's, must be going on to the property that Meritor has that would be before the interstate, or up to the interstate, rather, because ours only, you know, it goes a long distance, the town's property they own, and then it ends, and then it's some of the Meritor property, and then you get to the interstate.
So basically, with the plant will be going on to their property? you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
Yeah.
And they're good with that too, property owner?
I don't know how much discussion, I know, like if they were able to find out on our piece that there was like right-of-way dedicated for like a future trail at the far north end of the town piece, and I mean, Meritor's been a really good public partner on this, and, you know, obviously, they didn't get annexed in exchange for getting this land, so they've saved a tremendous amount of money in property taxes they haven't had to pay over the years.
So worst case scenario, if they said, if you just, without the Meritor, the matching grant would be $175,782, is what I'm looking at?
I think so, and I hadn't looked at this, just,
Then whatever you come back with about
yeah.
the maintenance of the added vehicles and
Yeah,
personnel. and
yeah.
everything.
Yeah, it's just the difference of, there's a strip of land that Meritor owns that you need to continue on to get to the end of our town limits, or the I-26.
And Parks and Recs don't need more staff, like I guess that you asked.
Not right now, I mean, I think as this is built out, yeah, but we need to get it funded, we need to get it designed, we need to get it built, I mean, that's all gonna take.
I mean, just for that, right, I'm talking about Parks and Recs being, that's just the, you know, here's the initial cost, but like for maintenance from now on,
Yes.
as we budget, I think that's one of the concerns.
I think this is probably gonna push, you know, ultimately that we use a lot of part-time, but, you know, we have 2 full-time maintenance positions, and then we got a permanent part-time maintenance, and then we have some seasonal maintenance and park attendants. You know, that permanent part-time one, that probably would push it into the full-time status.
What's the difference between full-time and permanent, hours? Or
Yeah, it's just hours
Hours,
that they're
okay.
available. And it gives, I mean, we have a lot to maintain with our current facilities, especially in the warmer months. I know in the colder months, when they're not cutting grass, we have a lot more time to do other projects. But once that grass cutting starts, I mean, it's full on, yeah, to take care of all the maintenance. So that's probably the point where maybe pushes us into full-time. And really, there's not a lot, especially as we get it paved, there's not a lot of daily maintenance. It's going down, make sure the trail is cleared, you know, and just monitoring activity on there.
Be large enough for Greg and Jibo's tractor with that arm they're wanting this year, coming down there and mowing everything back.
Cleaning everything out.
Now, is the Connect Now plan, is that what it's called, Connect Now, that's regional, came out a few years ago? I'm just wondering, what is the plan from, like, say we run that trail all the way out there? What are they gonna do at 26?
It's continue it along.
Parallel to it?
Yes, along the creek until you get to French Broad, and then that gets into the larger regional plans for trails along there.
I'll have to dig and see if I can find those papers that I had a couple of 3 years ago. I keep thinking I hung on to it, so I'd like to see how it's all gonna connect when it's done.
Yeah, the Hellbender, I think is the name of the regional one.
Okay,
That gets,
I'll
to
probably
get
find
it
it
to
online.
the French Broad.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, do we have any other questions or comments on that item? All right, any other business from council? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion.
We have a motion to adjourn, is there a second to adjourn?
Second.
Yeah, don't leave us hanging.
Jump for the second. So we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.